From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Alex, having David Bell up there.
What's that up there? We're not going to talk about David Bell.
Not right this minute, but it is time to talk about wide receivers the 49ers could draft, especially with 61. This has been a hotbed topic since the season ended. Everyone has been trying to tie their favorite big-time wide receiver to the 49ers at 61. We're going to go through it and see if they make sense at 61, 93, 105. There's a lot of great receivers for us to go through.
There is a bunch of great wide receivers for us to go through, and a lot of guys to talk about, but specifically, Ant, guys that make sense for the San Francisco 49ers, not the big names. So if you're here to talk about Jameson Williams from Alabama, if you're here to talk about guys like Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, Chris Olave, Drake London, it's not going to happen.
And not likely to fall to 61. I think if we were sitting in the 40s, those guys, somebody could slip and
possibly
realistically fall in that location.
Possibly.
But yeah, at 61, those aren't the top targets for the 49ers. And I don't see a scenario right now where the Niners decide to trade up into the early second round or late part of the first round to draft a wide receiver.
Agreed with you on that, and Cutback crew as well. We're going to be going through this list. We're going to be going through players. So you're going to have a bunch of questions. You're going to start throwing out names. We may not see them. We may not be paying attention to them. So hold those guys. Hold those questions. Hold guys that you want us to talk about until maybe towards the end or in between guys when we're paying a little bit more attention to the chat and not so much riffing and going back and forth off of one another and these guys that we got to talk about. So let's start with wide receivers, and let's start with the guys that aren't in the top half. And let's start specifically with a guy that John Lynch just spent time watching over at Penn State, Jahan Dotson. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about this gentleman?
Well, he's 5'10", 175 pounds. And I thought by breaking him down that he had really good feet. He was quick, was definitely a slot receiver, pretty good in space, and had good hands. So those were the positives I saw about all the film that I watched. The things that I was a little concerned about, Alex, was that he felt a little slight, maybe a little undersized, and not overly explosive. Like, I felt like he needed to be more explosive for his size, and I equated him to being Richie James. That was the comp for him. So I thought that he was a good player, a solid player, but he wasn't good enough to get a star. That's how I equate guys who I believe that are big time players. Is I will give them a star, and he did not receive a star from me.
I like that, Ant. I do like that. And David Bell, stop it. We're not talking about you right now. We'll get to you.
David Bell's wanting to pop up.
He really wants to come up on screen, and it's like he really wants us to talk about him. I don't know what the deal is. Look, Jahan Dotson, you have to talk about him just because you know what's going on with the Niners. You know that they're taking a look at him. You know John Lynch showed up at that pro day. He's watching what they're doing. He was also probably looking at another gentleman from Penn State that we can talk about at another time. But
I think there's more than one.
There's probably a handful.
Yeah, because you have the safety Ferkshire. You
do have the safety Ferkshire.
The edge rusher, AK as well.
True.
I think there's a lot of players from Penn State that are to be liked and that fit what the 49ers are trying to do.
I agree with you there. Jahan Dotson, things I liked was great stop ability, exploding off the snap. So talk about a guy who's got an incredible get off. This is a guy who's going to force guys to get into their back pedal, force guys to open up a little bit earlier. I did love the change of speed as well that he has on his breaks and his releases on his route running. I thought he has fantastic hands. I love the fact that he has some return.
You said fantastic hands. I said good hands.
I saw a couple of one-handed snags out there, Ant, that make me go.
They all catch one-handed now, though.
Not everyone does.
Pretty much everybody.
Not everyone
except for
does.
Jason Aponte, if you've seen that video on Twitter. Stone hands. Come on, Jason. Pick it up, man. Pick it up.
I can catch one-handed, Ant. I can catch one-handed. I think it's great hands.
Yeah.
But that's depending on the film you watch and the games you watch as well, he's going to give a little bit different opinion here and there. I like the fact that he has a return aspect as well that you can add to the repertoire of things that he can do. And then he does have run after the catch ability, and I did think he had pretty good vision. It feels like he catches in space, sees very well, and runs. It's nothing explosive or like, oh my God, this is game breaking. But he sees the field pretty well. He runs after the catch fairly well, and he's not running into his own guys or running into three dudes when he's got an opening to his left or to his right. He gets to the holes, gets to open space. My concerns were a good chunk of his routes took time to develop. Everything he does takes a while. So this is a guy who is not necessarily slow, but everything he does takes a long time. Now, that could just be a scheme thing at Penn State. Could just be there telling him, hey, you're running, 15-yard rails and 12-yard posts and middle crossers that are 20 yards down. Like, that could just be a scheme thing, or that could just be a him thing. He's doing a lot with his releases, doing a lot in terms of his breaks, and so he's taking a while to get in.
Not overly explosive is what I wrote down.
There you go, Ant. There you go. Questions about physicality. I just don't see it all the time with him. It's not always there. He doesn't play physical. Now, there is a guy that I will be bringing up later. I don't know if you've broken this guy down because we haven't gone through our whole list together of guys and talked about each guy individually, but there is a guy later that I absolutely love with the physical aspect of his game. There's some other things that are questionable, which is why he's going to be further down the list of available players. But Jahan Dotson is a guy who would make sense. He would fit the scheme to an extent. I just wonder if this is something that he's going to actually be there, because a lot of people have early second round grades on this.
Yeah, I'm glad they have an early second round grade. I hope he's not there, because I don't want the 49ers to draft him. I think that he would fit, but he would fit in the sort of the Richie James mold. This is literally Richie James type of player. Is he a better player than Richie James? Yeah, he could be. But I didn't see there was not like a super elite trait that I saw that made me say, oh yeah, that's the guy the Niners are going to go and pick with 61. And if they don't have an elite trait, I don't think the Niners are going to take him at 61. They need to be explosive. They need to be somebody that can do big things for Trey Lance. So 61, I'm not sure. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a good player. At pick 93, at pick 105, I would be down for that. But I don't see him at 61 being somebody that if I'm the 49ers, I target, especially with Ray McCloud. To me, Ray McCloud is a better version of Dotson.
I like that, and that's actually a good thing. And this is actually why Raymond McCloud takes some of these potential guys who would maybe make sense for the 49ers and actually bumps them down the list in terms of guys they may actually physically want just because of his skill set and what he does. Let's move on next, Ant, to a guy that we both really like.
Yeah.
A gentleman who is light Drake London, Ant, still has the size, still has a lot of the skill sets, and that is one Alec Pierce from the University of Cincinnati. This is an incredible
he ripped
gentleman.
That man's torso off.
He did. Look at him. It's absolutely incredible, Ant. It is absolutely incredible, the fact that he's able to do that out there in space. But Alec Pierce, he does a lot of good things. What were some of the pros that you saw out of Alec Pierce, and the reason why you think the Niners would actually target a guy like this?
Well, Alec Pierce is definitely starting to get on people's radar. Chris Sims, is here on the party now, and he's got him at the number 3 ranked wide receiver in the entire draft. I thought that Alec Pierce looked really good on film. A 6'2", 208-pound wide receiver from Cincinnati. These are the traits that I thought were very good. He competes for the ball. He's smooth with his athleticism. He high points passes in the air. He's a definite red zone threat, and he made a lot of contested catches, a lot. The things I questioned, and this was pre-combine that I broke him down a lot, was elite speed. It didn't look like he had elite speed, but now that he's ran a 4.4, we know he's got a lot of speed. The questions of lesser competition, is that something that's going to translate? Did he not play good enough people? And then separation, and this is something I talk about a lot with big receivers. Can they consistently get that separation at the next level? I think you can mitigate that, especially in the NFL, if you're playing for Kyle Shanahan, for instance. But I thought Alec Pierce was one of those guys that jumped off the film. I thought he was a smooth operator in space, was able to compete and make a lot of great plays. So, I gave him a star. He's one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. I think he would be a bang-up selection for the 49ers there, because he's a big, tall guy that has the potential to take the top off the defense with that 4.4 speed, but can also go up and make plays on the football. So he's a different element than what you currently have from the other receivers that are on your roster. So, I think that would be a very nice selection at 61, and he's the first ones, we've only talked about 2, that I believe would be an option at 61.
Not only is this an option at 61, Ant, I want this. This actually is a guy who's in my top 5 for wide receivers in this draft.
Okay.
Upcoming. I have a first-round grade on him. I believe he's a first-round talented type of guy. And look, I think the pros for him speak volumes as to why I believe that. Great body control in the air and on routes. He's really good at keeping his center of gravity, getting up in space, not losing track of not only the ball, but putting himself in a position where he can't come down with it, which is what makes him so dynamic, making those contested catches in the red zone along the sideline, which he made a bunch of this season, especially a couple against Notre Dame that were absolutely just, eyebrow raising, eyeball popping out of your head type stuff. And he doesn't give anything away on his routes either. He's very consistent. You talked about smooth. The smoothness comes off. The way he gets in and out of his breaks, the way he sets up his routes, everything is consistent. Everything flows and fluctuates, Ant. I really do like everything that he does.
Yeah.
And then the big one for me is he feels complete as a wideout. There doesn't feel like there is anything that he cannot do. Feels like he can do pretty much anything that you need him to do on the football field. You need him catching screens and running after the catch. He can do that. Is he going to be great at it? Maybe not great at it, but he's not a liability. He's not someone who can't run after the catch. He's not someone who doesn't have vision. Can he operate over the middle of the field on short routes? Absolutely. On tape, deep ball, he creates separation on the deep ball, but he didn't always create separation necessarily underneath so much on shorter routes. So I do feel at times, maybe there's some separation concerns issues. Maybe that's just release. Maybe it's just he struggles versus press man coverage. But I do feel at times he does play high over the middle. So he's very tall, goes up in space, doesn't really protect himself, and that can be an issue just for longevity in the league. But other than that, there's not a lot I dislike about Alec Pierce.
Right, and you see the way the wide receiver room is being built in San Francisco, and you know that there's a need for a big, tall receiver with speed. You have a big receiver in Jawan Jennings, who can operate on the third and short and make those plays over the middle, but you need somebody that can go down the field, and Alec Pierce fits that mold. He's a really good football player, and I think he would be a nice addition to the 49ers. I think one thing that was surprising to me was how athletic he actually looked on film compared to what you expected when you heard of him at Cincinnati. He was definitely more dynamic on film than I ever even anticipated before looking at it. So he's somebody I'm definitely interested in the 49ers getting at 61.
Yes, sir. Yes, please. Can we do that if it's there and if it's available? Look, I think there's a lot of things to like about Pierce. And look, I think because of some of the other names that we're about to talk about now, and there's a reason he could fall to 61. Now the next guy that we have to talk about is a guy that Baymack is going to absolutely lose his mind about us talking about. He's not going to be happy about it. And I don't necessarily blame him for that. This is a name that has been on everyone's mind. Everyone has been discussing, and there's the Trey Lance connection with Christian Watson. So we have to talk about him. You have to talk about Christian Watson. He is a guy that's supposed to be going in that second, third round area. This was third round grades for some people early. Then he has the combine, the pro day, the combine he had, and now he's going into the second round. Some people are thinking even potentially first round. So let's talk about Christian Watson. Let's talk about why it makes sense other than the Trey Lance connection, and because that one's doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. What do you like? What do you not like about big Christian Watson, speedy Christian Watson?
Yeah, the first thing you like is that he's 6'5", 211 pounds, and he runs a sub 4.340.
That's nice.
If you're running in the 4.2s and you have that kind of height, you start thinking about the big time players of the past. I know he's not Randy Moss, but that's the kind of speed and size equivalent that you're talking about. He is not Randy Moss. Let me make that clear. But what he is, a dynamic threat down the field, and it does help that he has some continuity with your quarterback already. But his explosiveness and versatility was what I saw on film. The fact that he could win consistently down the field and just on straight go routes, he could win consistently, even when everyone knew it was going to happen. But also the versatility to, make a reverse out of the backfield or catch a screen and make something happen. He was very physical at the point of contact, which I enjoyed. So I thought he would fit very nice in what the 49ers want to do. He's a guy that's gritty, that likes to get down and block. Those are all things that tailor themselves to what the 49ers like to do from the wide receiver position. So to me, he jumped out on film. The one question with him is just the level of competition. But this is what you're going to have from anyone that comes from that level of football. Because, you are able to burn every single player, that's there. So you wonder how much of that is going to change when he goes against a higher level competition. But I see this guy as a second round grade. I've always saw him as a second round grade. Nothing that happened, in between has changed that. The film says he's a second round player. At 61 would be an absolute steal for the 49ers, and this would be an absolute lock to transform the way that this wide receiver room would look. I think Pierce would do the same thing, but Watson's even more explosive than he is. I mean, that 0.2 of a second is gigantic difference in separation, and he would be such a problem for people as he took the top off the defense. So, Christian Watson, if he fell to 61, I think that would be a lock for the 49ers.
It feels like a lock.
Yeah.
It feels like a lock there at 61. Like I said, there were people that felt a certain way about him coming out. I know I felt a certain way about it coming out. The big things for me were the limited route tree and the tipping of routes sometimes in some of his breaks, especially comeback routes. He tends to give some things away. Gets a little bit too high and then a little bit too low, does some very consistent tells on tape. But again, tells on tape are one thing when you're looking for things to be wrong. If you're an opponent playing against the guy with that much speed, sometimes you don't have enough time to think about, is he sinking here? Is he getting too high? Is he about to break somewhere or break in a direction based on where he's lined up or how he comes out of his break on some of his routes? So he has that going for him with the speed. But look, there's just too many positive things for a couple of negative things for me to sit here and go, you know what? I was not as high on this guy, and after watching the tape, I'm going to let those couple of negative things continue to make me not high on this guy. He does it. He does everything, man. He really does. He can go high point the football. He's a red zone threat. He's a guy on 3rd and short that if you put on man-on-man, one-on-one coverage, man-to-man, you're going to get toasted. You can't do that. You have to keep help over the top just because of his speed. Saw that consistently on film. Anytime there was a one-on-one matchup, it is an immediate catch, drop, hit that back foot, turn, and look, and let's go find him. Let's go see this guy in space because he's going to eventually get past the gentleman that's covering him. He's eventually going to get past him. It's just a matter of time. And at the NFL level as well, the only thing I think some people may have concerns with is just build and strength. But guess what? Most of the teams he's going to end up probably going to, I would imagine 2nd round, potentially even the rumors are maybe even late 1st round if that were the case, or if he fell into the 2nd round, middle to late, are teams that aren't going to need him to be necessarily a wide receiver 1. They need this guy to be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. That means a role to fill, and you don't have to be a complete wide receiver quite yet. He's going to get into a weight room. He's going to put on some size. He's going to put on some of the physicality, nature, and aspect. But here's the thing. Despite people saying this isn't necessarily a physical wide receiver, he played in a run-heavy offense at North Dakota State, which means in order for him to be on the field and be a threat, both as a pass catcher and someone who's not necessarily running routes, he has to be able to block, which he can do. So he has a lot of good things, and you just see it, right? When you watch film, you see the versatility like you talked about. The way he not only catches the football and runs after the catch, but out of the backfield, in running situations, literally lines up in the backfield the last year in 4 or 5 games, straight up in the backfield as a running back option and a running threat for North Dakota State. This just kind of makes sense. It'd almost be too perfect of a fit. It makes so much sense, Ant, that there's no way I think a team would allow him to fall to San Francisco.
You would think somebody like the Jets or Miami is going to want to go make a move on this guy. But I think because of his elite speed, a lot of the teams are going to be interested. So I don't expect him to make it to 61. So if he's someone the 49ers are really interested in, they're going to have to make a move to go up and get him. And I do think they're going to have to go up inside the top 40 picks. I think that's where he's going to go. And if they value him that much, that's what they're going to do. Of course, they could also value edge rusher, so that's going to be a big decision for them to make. But Alex, one guy that a lot of people value and a lot of people have been talking about is George Pickens. George Pickens is the guy that's been on everyone's radar, and he's somebody that, even though I've watched film on him, I think he's a good receiver. I'm not sure he's reaching the level in my mind as some of the other players that we've already talked about. I thought when we talked about George Pickens, he was 6'2", 200 pounds from Georgia. I thought that was nice size, and that sounded really good right off the bat. It does sound really. It's all of the measurables for George Pickens sound great. Yeah, and then there were some great things. Some good things to like about him. A solid route runner. He had good body control, and he was good against the zone. I thought that those were things that he did really well. Absolutely, I liked it. Then you had the tear of the ACL, and I think that might be part of the reason I'm not seeing the explosivity and things like that. So then he lacked separation and the top end speed. I just didn't see it. It wasn't showing up on film. I don't know what his numbers are going to end up being at his pro day and all that. But to me, that was some of the things I saw. And I worry about the separation part when I don't see the numbers that go with it, right? We know that the other guy's Pierce didn't have separation, but he runs a 4.4. So you can figure out a way to make it happen. I don't know if Pickens would be a guy the Niners would target at 61, possibly at 93 if he fell there. That would make sense. But I think he is a good player, and I think he has a lot of potential. But right now, I'm not seeing that top-end potential that everyone is saying. George Pickens feels like a hot or cold wideout in this year's draft. Either people love him and want to put them in there like his top 5, or they're putting him as a guy who has, some first-round tools in the 3rd or 4th round is what I keep hearing from people. Now, granted, what I'm seeing is mock drafts consistently mock this guy in the 1st or 2nd round. That's what I'm seeing typically. Yeah, which is a little crazy to me because I see tools. Right, I see glimpses. I see positive things. As a guy who loves wide receiver play, Ant, and has consistently broken down wide receiver. You love wide receiver play? It's crazy. It's almost like I played it or something. I love route running. I love a guy's ability to run routes. Well, this guy runs routes very, very well. He's a very, very good route runner. So immediately watching film, it's like, oh God, yeah, let's get into more of this. And then you're like, okay, well, you're running great routes, but against zone, like you said, he's good against zone. He really sits down. He finds his areas. He's solid. But you put him in man-to-man situations, all of a sudden, all of those great route running things, the things he does well, the release, the coming off, setting up breaks, nice. There's just nothing pops after it. It's almost like when he comes out of breaks, it's the same speed. It's almost like slow motion, it feels like, and a guy has time to react and understands what's happening. Now, is that a scheme thing? Is that is it an injury thing that's plagued him and it's not there yet? He hasn't fully
gotten back to
I think
the
it
version
could
of
be a
himself.
little bit of the ACL, Alex.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. Whenever you have lower leg injuries like that, Achilles, ACL, things like that, and there's going to be problems and issues in terms of your ability to get back to your step, right? Getting your step back, getting back to that first step speed that you had. So there may be that. But if it's not there yet, and he can't prove it between now and the draft, there is no reason to draft this guy early. Let this guy fall. Let this guy slide. His value only increases the further he goes down boards. And he's actually a less risky pick down later in the draft's third round. If you got into the late third round with this guy, this feels like a steal at that point once you're starting to get to the late third because of all the tools that he has. He's getting closer to being healthy, you would imagine. And this is a guy that a lot of people put first round talent on. So if it's a guy with first round talent and ability that is down in that area of the third round, late third, middle of the third round, you're sitting there going, okay, well, does this fit for us? Can we make this work within our scheme? And I think you can. I just think he's limited right now. I don't think he can come in and be one of your best 2 wide receivers off the jump. So if a team's bringing this guy in, hoping to get that type of production out of him, you're going to miss on this.
Yeah, I gave him a second round grade. I think he's a late second round pick. And I just don't think he fits what the 49ers are trying to do with, already having 2 top receivers. I think he's too similar to some of the receivers that they have. And I think they need someone to be more explosive. And explosion is what we're going to be talking about next, Alex, because we're going to talk about John Metchie from Alabama. John Metchie was one of those guys that was on the scene in a big time way with Devontae Smith. Was there. Devontae Smith is there, Jalen Waddle's there, and everyone's talking about Metchie's ability. As soon as he becomes the main guy, now they're talking about Jameson Williams, which is interesting, right? But I got into the film, and one thing I'm gonna clarify on this: he's 6 foot, 195 pounds, so he's already bigger than he looks on film because he doesn't look.
He looks tiny.
He does look small, but I love him. I love what John Metchie does.
This is a star guy for you, correct?
He's a star guy. I thought so far we've had 3 star guys. We've got Christian Watson, Alec Pierce, and now John Metchie. He's a great route runner. I love his routes. He can win one-on-one. So you put him out there on an island, he's going to win. He's great after the catch. I mean, he makes things happen in the open field. Screams Kyle Shanahan offense. Here's the best one, though. He does a crane kick TD celebration.
He does do a crane kick.
This is what we need in San Francisco, okay? We need the crane kick TD celebration, but he doesn't lose speed when catching the football either.
No.
Out of the things I just named, how many of these are great Kyle Shanahan type traits?
They are 1,000% Kyle Shanahan traits.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like he fell off. Like, I know a lot of people thought he fell off and that he only produced when he had great wide receivers. Well, Alabama has great wide receivers all the time.
Consistently.
And you had Devontae Smith and you had Jalen Waddle. You know what he would have in San Francisco? Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Getting another explosive player like him to add to this roster would just be huge. I would definitely be in favor of them getting Metchie. The crazy thing is, watching some of the draft boards, it appears Metchie could be available around pick 93.
Which this is what I was actually going to talk to you about, because I have, you have a star on this guy. I have what my version of a star, which is, I put the guy as a first or second round grade, even though he might not be in terms of what you'd see. He's a star player for me. This is a guy who's highly talented. Like, everything you just said is accurate about Metchie. The route running is incredible. The fact that he can catch without having to decelerate and basically keeps momentum going through space is absolutely fantastic. And like a Kyle Shanahan staple, right? If you do this on film, Kyle Shanahan is like making a poster board of you, and he's like putting all your highlight films up. He watches it all the time. He loves that stuff about him, but he's also creative, and he's creative with his route running, his releases, how he creates his separation, how he gets in and out of his breaks. He'll set things up the same exact way and then give you a different shake, a different shimmy, a different inside step. He'll mix up his release and break combinations so that even though he releases to the same spot, inside release, outside release, straight up field, pressing into body contact, whatever it is, he gives those same looks and then does something different out of it. So there's no way as a defender at the college level, with how many different formations, how many different places he lines up in, that you were 100% sure which way he's going. And so with Metchie too, and it's just one of those things where the only issue I see with him is the injury. That's it. Yeah. In terms of what he could do in San Francisco in this scheme and this offense with the weapons already in place. And the fact that he is going somewhere near the third round, this feels like one of those situations where if the Niners felt this guy could go mid-third round, they may package some picks and move up to get a guy like this.
Yeah, I mean, you have some late round compensatory picks. So 6th round picks, pick 220, 221. that you could use at your disposal. You could couple one of those with, of course, 262, Mr. Irrelevant, and jump up a few spots. Go from 93 to 80, or something of that nature, and pick up a player like this. I think Metchie would do a bang-up job for the 49ers. That would be a great pick. You add him to a room that already has Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and Ray McLeod. I think that's pretty explosive, and that's what you're looking for. And he also has a lot of other ability he can do. I'm sure he could expand his horizons as well, and you could get him involved in the run game. And Alex, we move from there to South Alabama. So,
that's right.
Not Alabama, but now South Alabama, because Jalen Tolbert is there. And what do you think about Jalen Tolbert? Is this a guy that was jumping off the screen for you?
Let me get to there it is. Yeah. Holy cow almighty. You and I in a shocking turn of events and broke down a lot of players. So, look, yes. I do like this. Shows consistent releases with making his routes, which make his routes hard to predict. Shows great ability to create space on film. So he does create some good space. Solid straight line speed. Great at high pointing the football. Not great running after the catch. Vision isn't off the charts are my two biggest concerns with him. When he catches the ball in space, short screens, things of that nature, this isn't a guy, unless he has perfect blocking and a literal alley that he can just run straight down and shoot. This isn't a guy that's going to be making plays with the football. He is great when you get him the ball in space, right, when he's got a lot of room and not a lot of guys around him, and he doesn't have to try and maneuver and get his way around. This is just a wide receiving option. This guy is a receiver, and this guy is not a run after the catcher. This isn't a guy who's a playmaker. He's none of those things. Now, he does have incredible speed. He is really ridiculously fast and does a lot of other good things, and he's got pretty solid hands, and he's very good at going up in space and catching the football. But, I mean, other than that, I don't know. And I'm not sold on him as a blocking option at the wide receiver position either. He's not very physical out in space. And I've seen a handful of plays of Jalen Tolbert, a handful of plays in which there is minimal to no attempt to block, especially when the ball is going opposite side and a running back's cutting back across the grain. And, hey, the Niners run a zone scheme. Which running backs could cut across the grain, Ant? So I don't know how serious the Niners are considering a guy like this. There is a lot of talent there. It could just be a system thing there at South Alabama and what he was being asked to do, but it doesn't feel like this is an option that Niners are going to heavily invest in.
Yeah, Jalen Tolbert is 6'1", 195 pounds, so he's got the right size. I did put a box next to it, which means he fits the 49ers scheme. So he was a scheme fit. He did not receive a star from me, so he's not one of my star players, but I thought he had good body control, was good after the catch, consistently wins, and he's fast enough. That's what I wrote, fast enough. I don't even, like I said, I don't always go off the numbers of what they, get in the combine or they get in their pro days. I'm going to go off what they look like on film. This is a perfect example is Elijah Mitchell last year. He runs a 4.3. Everything in film shows me that he's not a 4.3. And when we're talking about him, we talk about he's probably a 4.4. And I think everyone thinks that's the case now. My problem with him is with Jalen Tolbert compared to like Metchie and some of the other guys we've talked about is he didn't appear to be very elusive. It was like when he made the catch, he could get upfield and get positive yards, but then he was going to get tackled. And I want players with elite traits. This is something me and you talk about all the time. We talked about it with some of the wide receivers that are going to go in the first round, is I want elite traits, things that are going to transcend in the NFL. When you get guys that just do things really great and they're polished coming out of college, it doesn't always equate. You have to have elite traits that can be developed, or in the rest of their game can be developed. I seen somebody asking about Christian Watson. They said they jumped in. That's one of the things I really liked about Christian Watson was the elite traits, the elite speed, the way he can operate after the catch. That is something that's different for Jalen Tolbert.
Or just in space in general. If Christian Watson gets the ball in his hands, whether that's coming out of the backfield, right, in the flats on a screen, over the middle on a crosser, he's elusive. He's someone who's shifty. He sees the field. He'll make guys miss. Tolbert does not do that.
No, he doesn't. But Tolbert's a good receiver.
Correct.
Somebody's going to get a receiver that's going to be a great number 2 receiver in this league for a long time and catch the football and produce first downs and be a good red zone threat. Just don't know if that's what the 49ers need already. They have Jawan Jennings for that. He gets first downs. The difference between Tolbert and Jennings, though, is Tolbert's a lot faster. The problem is Jawan Jennings is a lot more physical. So Jennings is going to do the other work that Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel don't always have to do. So I think system fit-wise, he does fit, but I don't know if he fits exactly with this group of wide receivers that they have right now. So I would say he's an outside chance for the 49ers, but I wouldn't select him at 61. It would have to be further along, and I think he will go somewhere in that 60 to 70 range. So I would give him a second round grade.
Oh, I like that there, Ant. Look, there's a lot of things to like about Jalen Tolbert, but there's also some question marks, and when you have some of those question marks and their scheme fit issues or just things that the Niners may not be looking for in a wideout. It's questions, Ant. You got to have some questions. Now, let's move on to a gentleman that I think it's JLA. JLA, I might be wrong on this. You correct me if I am. But a couple of members of the Cutback crew were very high on this gentleman.
Okay.
Skyy Moore. They are sky high on Skyy, Ant, out of Western Michigan. Some positive things. He's fast. He's very fast. He'd definitely be a slot guy.
Yeah, what's his size?
It's not big. It's not big, Ant. It's not big, which is why I literally put in notes slot specialist, and I put specialist in quotation marks because he is not playing on the outside.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this because a lot of people on Twitter have been equating Skyy Moore. He flew up. People got really excited and flew up their boards, but they were saying he reminded them of Elijah Moore from last year.
No.
I was wondering what you think about that, including even maybe Rondell as well as somebody that they equate him to or comp him to.
No, because what I saw from Elijah Moore and Rondell Moore both was the ability to get off press man coverage, and this guy faced almost no press man coverage.
Yeah,
like almost none. And you want to talk about? I mean, I said earlier, I believe it was on Watson, that one of my concerns was the route tree, right?
Yeah,
I didn't necessarily see Christian Watson running like the entirety of the route tree in college, where some of the other top end guys, you do see that. You want to talk about limited route tree?
Yeah.
This guy might have the smallest route tree of every receiver in this draft. We're talking about a guy who ran literally, there was a 3-game stretch of film, Ant, where I didn't see him run more than 3 routes. A vertical, a slant, and a slightly deeper slant.
Yeah, and because they're so similar, let's go ahead and let's throw Calvin Austin into this.
We might as well.
With Skyy Moore, since they're so similar, and 49er fans have been really high on them. But when we're talking about both of them, like Calvin Austin, 5'7", 173 pounds, another super small guy, and
stupidly fast.
Out of Memphis, a good player. One thing I said about him is that he plays bigger. He's got track speed. That's what he looks like to me. He's got track speed. Good after the catch. Doesn't slow down to catch. Those sound like Kyle Shanahan things.
Those are Kyle Shanahan things.
Yeah.
Man.
Here's the problem. This is not a Kyle Shanahan thing. The blocking. At 5'7", 173 pounds, even the effort doesn't always get it done. His body control. I thought sometimes he wasn't as great in the air as I anticipated with his size and speed and athleticism. What did you feel? Really undersized.
What did you feel about his run after the catch ability? Because I have on here not dynamic, not a dynamic runner with the ball in his hands. Has solid vision, but isn't explosive or doesn't show the great ability to change directions in space. This is a guy who's fast, but it's not entirely straight line speed. But this is a guy who accelerates gets us up to top speed so fast that sometimes he overruns openings, and then he's trying to slow himself down to be able to get to where he needs to get and actually change directions. It's not explosive. It's not explosive enough for me to sit there and go, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch will look at this guy being like, this is a playmaker that we could go get. And some people have this guy going as early as a second. I think everyone's kind of settling into the fact that this guy's probably going to be closer to a 3rd or 4th round pick. In my mind, I think that's where he should be going. But I don't know if San Francisco in the 3rd or 4th round is sitting there going, this is a better option than a guy like Ray-Ray McCloud we just signed.
No, he might not be a better option. But what he could be is a 105 comp pick. If you haven't went receiver until 105, that's potential for Calvin Austin or Skyy Moore. I think that Austin is the better player from what I've seen on film. I think he's more dynamic, but you're right. The straight ahead speed. That's why I put track speed. There's people that have football speed, where they can do all kinds of different things. Brandon Ayuk is one of those guys that has football speed, but then there's the track speed where they're just straight ahead. They're one of the fastest guys, and I think that's what he's got. I did, however, think he was good after the catch, just not great after the catch, and part of that is because he doesn't have to slow down to catch the football.
Sure.
Anytime you don't slow down, it gives you an advantage. So if you have a quarterback that can put it on you, you can make plays. He's a playmaker. I just don't know if he fits what the 49ers want at his 5'7", 173-pound frame, where we've seen the 49ers slowly move to a bigger receiver. And Ray-Ray McCloud is a different animal altogether because of what he adds in the special teams game. So I wonder if Calvin Austin now makes sense at all if you have Ray-Ray McCloud.
It feels like that he doesn't. I mean, it really does truly feel like this is just not something the Niners are going to go after and target, and I wouldn't blame him for not doing that. Look, you have a guy in Ray-Ray McCloud that does a lot of these similar things, and I don't believe this guy does them better than him right now, or maybe ever. There's a chance that he maybe ever is not the same type of player. Let's move on from those two gentlemen, from both Skyy Moore and from Calvin Austin III, and let's shift our attention over to a guy out of Nevada, Romeo Doubs, and who there are some positive things, there's some things to like, but Do you think there are some negatives? And do you think the Niners are actually considering this around where he is falling? Because he is right in that same sort of area as Calvin Austin and a Skyy Moore.
Yeah, I think third or fourth round, you're starting to think that he's a possibility. I gave him a box, which means he's a scheme fit. He's 6'1", 204 pounds, like you said, out of Nevada. The first thing I questioned was his speed. I wondered how fast he actually was. I thought at times on film he looked good, but maybe didn't have that top-end speed that was going to be an elite trait. Because once again, I'm a guy that's looking for elite traits out of my guys. I understand that there's a lot of really polished and very good football players. I want the guys to have the elite traits that you can develop as a coaching staff. That's what you're looking for. I thought he did well over the middle. So that screamed Kyle Shanahan. That's why he got a box from me. Good on screens. Another thing Kyle Shanahan and them like to do. He had made some contested catches, but the one thing I really saw on film was he was tough. To me, those were things that were Kyle Shanahan type fits, but he didn't get a star because I didn't see any of the elite traits. So I thought he was good. So anytime you're getting into the late third, like we talked about the compensatory pick, into the fourth round, maybe pick 133, those are when, to me, he makes the most sense. I'm not sure he'll be there at 133, so he might not fall in the window that the 49ers are looking to pick a receiver potentially. So I don't know if he will end up on San Francisco, but those were some of the things I thought about Romeo Doubs.
Same sort of thing. Same sort of breakdown from me. I thought solid catching in traffic. This guy's really good at catching the ball with hands around him in space, tight window catches, things like that. I did see some nice things out of him in the return game as well, so that adds a little bit of extra pizzazz there for him and what you could do, because I don't know if the cutback crew and everyone faithful knows this in Faithful Land, but the Niners are looking to upgrade the special teams area. So if you got a guy you can bring in that can do a couple different things, that's good. And it did seem like on film that he could take the top off the defense, but it's not consistent. My biggest concerns were outside routes. He intends anything outside the numbers, outside those hash marks, breaking out towards the sideline. He rounds those routes off a little bit. Now, that could be a scheme thing, but I didn't see other wide receivers opposite of him rounding offset routes, so I don't believe it's a scheme thing. The route running isn't crisp, and when you're a guy who doesn't have, like you talked about, elite traits, having elite route running can make up for some of those, Ant, and make you stand and pop a little bit more on film, and doesn't show great run after the catch ability. It is there. He can run after the catch, and he does it pretty well. Like you said, it's good, but it isn't necessarily elite. Right. And this is why this makes it hard for me to believe whether or not the Niners will actually go get a guy like this, is because, will he fall into the window? Probably not. And I don't see the Niners drooling over this guy, being like, hey, let's move up a couple of spots and potentially give up some capital in order to make sure we get this guy in here. Now, if some other teams fall asleep on him, they don't feel he's worth it at that spot, then he could slide in there, like you said, around that 133 number, and then we're talking a potentiality. But that's if there's other guys that potentially aren't on the board, or someone else in another position that hasn't necessarily fallen to that spot as well, Ant. But Romeo Doubs, it's not a bad option there. It's not a bad possibility. There are a lot of positive and nice things to like about him. And now, Ant. Now we can finally get to one Mr. David Bell out of Purdue, and let the cutback crew know what is going on as I make sure that David Bell pops up on screen for everybody.
Number one, David Bell is a star player for me. I mean, he was one of those guys that got a star.
But, Ant, he doesn't run a super fast 40.
Yeah, neither does Jahan Jennings. But Jahan Jennings is one of my dogs coming out of that draft as well. David Bell, 6'2", 205 pounds, out of Purdue. He's a very good receiver. This is one of those guys that he jumped off film to me. And I know we're going to talk about it. I mean, right off the bat, my first negative note, and in fact, it's the one negative note that jumped out, lacks top end speed.
Oh, man, that's mine, too. It literally says it.
What's crazy? This is pre-combine. This isn't that number. This is pre-combine.
You already knew it going into the combine.
That's right, because it shows up on film. But these are the traits he does have. He's a great route, not a good route runner, a great route runner. He's really good after the catch. He's an absolute competitor, which I love. I want my guys to go get it. He does. And he has great hands. Not good hands, great hands. He catches the football at a high rate.
Nothing comes into his body.
No. This guy uses his hands at a high level. I think, to me, he's one of those guys that's ready to roll. Yes, there are concerns about the top-end speed, but the way that he operates against zone coverage and the way he creates separation, even at his speed, means he can do it. Because we saw Jahan Jennings already do it for San Francisco, which means Kyle Shanahan can create separation for you. And so if you can catch the ball and you can create with the ball in your hands, he's going to get you the football. So that means he's a scheme fit for the 49ers.
Here it is, Ant. He's highlighted for me. I have him as a guy that is I consider to be someone who is a second round type player, even though he's not going to go anywhere near the second round. Consistent route runner. So when I say consistent route runner, I can't talk about great route running, Ant, because you already brought it up. Consistent route runner, though, meaning his releases are all the same. The way he runs his routes, they all look similar, so it's very hard to predict. Incredible run after catch ability. Despite the fact that this guy lacks speed, and he is, consistently on film, hauling off 15, 20, 30 yards running after the catch, breaking multiple tackles, slipping through guys and defenders. It's incredible. And the amount of separation generated from speed changes and not speed himself. The way he starts and stops, gets up to his top speed, which isn't necessarily the fastest in the entire world, but he gets up to his top speed quick, is able to slow down quick and then get out of his breaks. And guys are caught flat-footed, almost stone-footed in space with the amount of separation he's able to generate. It's absolutely incredible. David Bell is one of those guys where you're watching it on film and you're just going like, he's already a member of the Rack Bros. Like, he's already a part of the Yak attack.
Oh, you're going to go back to the 80s and call it Rack when it was run after the catch.
Rack, Yak, who cares? It's all the same thing, Anton. He's already he's like a member. He's a member of this group with George Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, and he's not even in San Francisco yet. I watched the film and I was like, I can already see it. Slap the number 3 on the boy, put him in the slot. It's the same thing already. It makes so much sense that I almost don't see this not happening. This one of those things feels like it's a home run, like landing spot for San Francisco. The problem is that there are other teams with picks who are running very similar systems who may be looking at this guy and thinking the same exact thing. Now, I don't think a team like Los Angeles is a landing spot for this guy because they love speed at their wide receivers and they may just cross him off the list right away. And look, Deebo Samuel wasn't necessarily a barn burner, Ant. He ran the 4.55. That's not slow by any means. And David Bell ran a much slower 40 time. But look, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter to me. Those things don't matter. It's the elite traits that he does have, and he has a handful of them for a guy who doesn't run the fastest 40 time in the world, and I'm A-okay with that.
Yeah, I care about those numbers.
You don't care about that 40 time
I don't care about at all.
We were literally going into the combine, and you were like, let's see how bad the 40 time is. Yeah. And I was like, you really think it's going to be that bad? I was like, it'll probably be like a 4.6. You're like, it might be bad. It was bad.
It's bad. I mean, the thing is...
Was it slower, though, than Jarvis Landry's?
No, Jarvis Landry was slower. Jawan Jennings was slower.
And Jarvis Landry has had himself an incredible football career.
Yeah, I mean, you can still carve it out if you're not fast. I mean, that's just the way. Jerry Rice was, a 4.6?
Something like that?
So, I mean, yeah, you can still do it. I'm going to jump a little bit, Alex, because I want to talk about Khalil Shakir. Out of
Smart man.
Boise.
Smart man.
Yeah, he's 6 foot, 193 pounds, for those of you who don't know. Now, when I'm breaking down, I start jotting down stuff. So the first thing I did, jumping off, was I marked a box, which means he fits what the 49ers want to do. He's a scheme fit. I think a lot of people that watch his film would believe that. Here's where it gets interesting. As I'm watching film, he became a star player for me because I just thought he was, created so many potential opportunities for the 49ers. One, with versatility. I thought he had versatility to do a lot of different things. He was very good after the catch. He adjusts to the ball well, catches the ball on the run well. That's why he fits for the 49ers. And he was tough. So I thought those were... Here's the one negative about him. How we were talking about David Bell never catching things with his body. This is the difference. Shakir does catch things with his body. He will let the ball get into him, which is potential for drops. And when you have a quarterback like Trey Lance is going to throw an absolute frozen rope, you don't want that ball getting into your body because all I am envisioning now is him going over the middle, ball coming into his body, the ball bouncing off his shoulder pads and being an interception. That's not what I'm looking for. But that's a correctable thing. So you look at all the other things, all the other traits make him a star player, and you can correct him, using his body to catch the football, make him use his hands. So that's something he can develop. But yeah, I think he's a system fit for the 49ers, and I liked him on film. In fact, I liked him more than like Doubs and some of the other guys.
True. I did like this guy more than Doubs as well. It's interesting, Ant. The into the body stuff is weird because I felt this guy has strong hand ability. Yeah, I saw him go up and pluck balls out of space on some films and highlights where I was like, okay, so he has the ability to go up in space and catch the football, and feels like he's fairly strong catching the ball in his hands. Doesn't get a lot of things batted or knocked out. He's not juggling a lot. And then you start watching some game tape and some of the other balls in space and where it goes, and him kind of letting things come inside, and it's interesting. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or a location thing. He's not able to locate, but here's what I do know. When the ball's in the air with guys around him, he does locate the ball well high pointing in space in the air. He does have run after the catch ability, and he has solid vision, incredible vision. The change of speed on his breaks and the way he's able to get in and out, and explode out of breaks and create that separation to be able to get, basically create a pocket for the quarterback to comfortably throw the football in and not feel like you have to throw a perfect dime in order for this guy to catch it is fantastic and incredible. And if you're a guy like Trey Lance, having a young guy like this who can come in and create that separation and give you an easier throw to make, that's a positive thing. But you do worry about him bringing the ball in and catching. And then I put on here, double moves, at times he'll drift. So after a double move on his route, he will sometimes drift away from his spot and has to course correct. But the good news is, Ant, that because he locates the ball well in space and has a good understanding of where he needs to be, he's very good at repositioning himself, readjusting on the fly. This is a guy who doesn't necessarily get caught in a space where he can't make a catch on the ball because he hasn't located early and been able to get himself in a position. If he does drift, he does course correct and recorrect quickly. But this is why I have that grade kind of fluctuating between that third. Well, I think he's going to go somewhere probably between the third and the fourth. He could. But I have him on my grade board of second to third round type of player.
No, I'm right with you on that, actually. Late second, early third, I think is a dynamite place for him to go. And I think you're evaluating the same way I am. When you look at these guys and their traits, as long as the things are correctable and you believe that they can correct those type of things, you're going to somewhat, bypass those because you're looking for the elite traits. And yes, I love what Matthew Rowley said anyways, about Trey Lance isn't going to be the quarterback. So anyways, but we're going to continue on this, and I'm going to jump around again, Alex, and I'm going to jump to a guy that I'm a huge fan of in this draft. And he might not be most people might not be a huge fan of him, but he's out of UCLA, and that's Kyle Phillips. 5'10", 199 pounds out of UCLA, definite slot receiver. And everyone needs to know, if you don't know about this guy, my first comp was I wrote down Julian Edelman. That was one of the first things.
100%.
That's one of the first things I wrote down. He's a star player for me. To me, there's just something about this guy that just screams he's going to fit in the NFL. He's going to have himself a dynamite career if he gets, in the right team. Slot, he can punt return, run after the catch, fantastic. Zone coverage game, good against the zone coverage. I put that he had a little wide back potential in him, where he was a guy that could play in the backfield, catch the ball in the backfield, would be a matchup problem for linebackers. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not Deebo Samuel-esque. He's not going to carry the football like that. I'm saying he could start out of that and occasionally do some things. And then he's a great route runner. My one negative, the top end speed. And I know he ran a good 40 time, but on film, I didn't see that top end speed. I didn't see that 4.3, 4.4 guy, but that's also why he makes sense as far as a Julian Edelman, type of player. And he's really quick in space.
Where do you see him going?
I see him going somewhere in the fourth round. I think fourth or fifth round is probably the comp for him. I would value him as high as a third round.
That's where I'm at as well.
But I think that he's probably going to be a fourth round pick.
At third, I would not hate a third round compensatory pick.
Yeah.
On Kyle Phillips, I really wouldn't. JLA just said it runs clean routes. I have elite route runner on here. I think he might be one of the best route runners, especially in the intermediate stuff, middle of the field.
Yeah.
I get Hunter Renfrow vibes on some of his short routes and intermediate route running.
Right.
The way he's able to create separation, how well he explodes out of it, and then the vision after he catches the ball, he feels defenders. Like, he feels defenders without necessarily having to look upfield and take a peek at where guys are. He kind of just catches, is able to turn himself in space, make the first couple of guys miss, and then get extra yards afterwards, which is a Julian Edelman trait. We saw Edelman do that a lot as well. I think this is a solid slot option that could develop into potentially a whole heck of a lot more for San Francisco. Maybe into that wide back role, Ant, like you said.
Yeah.
The big thing is the size, speed, and physicality. But I didn't see anything on film that makes me think this guy isn't physical, like ultra uber physical. He's just not someone who's like going to beat you with his physicality. It's the shiftiness, it's his vision, the way he plays, the level, the contact balance, center of gravity. He keeps himself low in space. I love everything about Kyle Phillips. You sent me the film, and I literally texted back, has Kyle Shanahan written all over him.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that as soon as I watched him, I had to send you a little snippet of what was going on, because to me it jumped off as somebody that was going to be a potential really good player in the NFL.
You're not wrong, my guy.
Bill Belichick could be licking his chops, that's for sure.
100%.
And then let's jump to one of the fastest dudes. Let's talk about Tyquan Thornton.
Smart. We should talk about him. He's pretty fast, Ant.
Yeah, he's 6'2", 177 pounds out of Baylor. These are the things I liked about him. He's fast, good body control, good hands, run after the catch, wins one-on-one. Here's the problem. 177 pounds. So his blocking lacks at times, physicality-wise. But because the 49ers are looking for a guy that can take the top off the defense, because
he can do that.
They're looking for a guy that can stretch the field. I did give him a box.
Okay.
I did. I think he fits what the 49ers do.
I have him highlighted yellow on my sheet, meaning it's a player to watch. He's a scheme fit guy for San Francisco. He takes the top off the defense, and the straight line speed is absolutely incredible.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And despite the straight line speed, usually when you got a guy who's got straight line speed, Ant, they don't typically run after the catch well. He shockingly, surprisingly kind of does, which doesn't at times make sense to me because I'm watching him, and when you see him like see his crease, he's gone. And then I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't have a crease. Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad. The problem for me is he's not very great getting in and out of his breaks. So despite the speed, he doesn't explode coming out of breaks, which is like a question mark for me. And that's just a route running thing. And that might be him just transitioning and translating and developing that part of his game. Well, he had a limited route tree, and I felt he had inconsistent depth on breaks. Okay. I saw numerous times, Ant, where he was running slants against teams, same defense, similar type of fronts, and he's 3 yards, and then he's 5 yards. And one time I saw him got a little bullied at the line of scrimmage, and that break ended up almost coming at 7 yards, and his quarterback was holding on to the football. So at times he can be a little bit inconsistent with his depths, but again, that's me watching film, not knowing Baylor's offensive scheme and whether or not there is something that's tipping his hand in terms of, hey, you break this at 3, hey, you break this at 5, and then, him getting bullied off the line of scrimmage, press release. Not everyone is great at getting off press release, and if you don't see it all the time, maybe it's something he hasn't worked on, which means he's got plenty of time to get that fixed. And Ant, when you have that kind of speed, all it takes is the guy on press man to miss on the first punch, and you're beat.
Yeah, or you can put him in the slot and create that separation for him. I'll also start him on the move in motion. That'll help as well. But when you're 177 pounds and you're 6 foot, 6'2" or whatever it was, not very big. But how much weight can he put on his frame without losing the speed? That's a question.
That's a big
question.
So
that is something. And one of the guys that I want to get into, I seen T.O. ask, is there a Cooper Kupp type of player in this draft?
Oh, okay, T.O.
Yeah, potentially there are guys, right?
There are.
One guy that is kind of in a smaller school that I believe is kind of jumping up people's boards. And it's funny because every day somebody else finds out about him.
Sure.
Brad from the SF Niners found out about him earlier this week. And that's Danny Gray from SMU.
Good for Brad.
Yeah, 5'11", 190 pounds. And Alex knows this. He's one of my favorite players in the draft, favorite wide receivers. And look at that. He's already got something for him because we just like this guy so much. And the one thing about Danny Gray, 5'11", 190 pounds, it doesn't scream right away that he's going to be a big-time receiver.
No, it screams the opposite.
But he's good with the ball.
Incredible with the ball.
Very good run after the catch. He runs fly sweeps, which I love that element into the offense because you don't see that from some of the receivers. And I feel like that is something that Brandon Ayuk doesn't do very well consistently, so you can add that with Danny Gray. And then he doesn't slow when he catches the ball again. So it's another thing that fits Kyle Shanahan's system. And I didn't really find a whole lot of negatives with him. I thought he made a lot of plays and contested catches.
I have one.
Yeah.
I have only one. He lets the ball come into his chest at times.
Yeah.
With certain routes with certain situations. He doesn't always necessarily get his hands out there in time. Now, I don't think that's he doesn't trust his hands sort of thing. I think it's just timing of the situation. But it can happen at times. But Ant, I have everything that you just said. Rack ability. Run after the catch ability, the versatility. Literally have on here utility wideout, not necessarily wide back wideout potential, but utility wideout. You can use him a variety of different ways. Almost a perfect scheme fit. I think the only thing that I concern about is just with the size, how they could use him in a variety of different ways. I don't know necessarily if
you're worried about 5'11", 190. I mean, that's not a small guy.
I guess it's more of just the big body type, right? Because it feels like the Niners have some of those intermediate lower guys, right? The guys that are a little bit smaller in space that aren't necessarily the big jump ball guys. So it feels like San Francisco needs to go get the big body guy. That's why I'm saying I don't know if it's necessarily perfect scheme fit wise, because I think you need to add that to your weaponry. That's not this. That's not what this is. But this is a guy who fits in the rotation perfectly. And the release package this guy has, the release package he has is absolutely incredible. You can't run press man coverage against this gentleman. You cannot press man coverage Danny Gray. Danny Gray gets off press man coverage like it's rolling out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
He doesn't put on his pants against press man coverage like the rest of the wide receivers in this group. This guy gets off the snap, gets into his route, creates separation, and then like you said, Ant, catches the ball at top speed, without sacrificing anything. It makes everyone look silly.
Yeah, and JL is saying both SMU wide receivers. So let's go ahead and just do Reggie.
Might as well go Reggie Roberson.
Reggie Roberson, and of course Calcantara is there as well as the tight end that used to be at Oklahoma. But Reggie Roberson is an interesting guy because he was somebody that was on my radar last year.
He was.
I was watching a lot of the tight end there. What was the tight end's name? Granderson, right?
Kyle Granson.
Kyle Granson. There you go.
It was basically Granderson except without the dirt. It's fine.
Without baseball. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I was watching him and Roberson kept jumping off film. I kept seeing him and I was like, wow. And I was hoping Roberson was coming out last year. That's how much I liked him. I think he's a really good football player, and I think he's actually going to go later than Danny Gray.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of talent. And all the things you like about Danny Gray, you can almost like about Roberson. They're pretty much almost a comp.
They literally are.
Yeah, he's good after the catch. He has good hands. He runs good routes. He's physical. He wins at the point of attack. He'll go up and compete for footballs. So both of the SMU guys are guys to watch for the 49ers, especially once you start getting to 5th round plus. I think that's when you get a lot of value. Danny Gray might squeak into the 4th round, potentially, but I think Roberson will go 5th, 6th round, and I think that those are guys the Niners could add to be a 5th or 6th option, in the wide receiver room. So I would be down with both of those guys. In fact, I do like Gray a little bit more than Roberson, but I'm a fan of both of them.
When I watched I literally have on here for Roberson, see Danny Gray in my notes for positive. See Danny Gray. He's a solid route runner, solid vision, threat to run after the catch, operates very well, probably his best over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
The physicality is it's always a question with guys who aren't like the big, huge bodied, big, wide shouldered, broad shouldered gentlemen. But he's fast enough. I have on here. Right. He's fast enough. He doesn't have necessarily the elite top end speed, but he's fast enough, and on film, he beats guys. He beats guys deep over the top. So if you're wondering if this guy could be a deep threat, he 100% can. Both of these guys would be solid options for San Francisco. There's a lot of guys, and this is a highlighted guy. Both Roberson was highlighted, Gray was highlighted, Kyle Phillips highlighted for me. I mean, there's a lot of highlighted players here. The Niners can't get all of them, but good golly almighty, I wish they could, man.
Oh, here's a guy that I don't know how much you've broke him down, but Emeka Emezie, from NC State, 6'1", 179 pounds, was somebody that jumped off film, and it started once again as a scheme fit guy as I was watching film, and turned into, actually, I gave this guy a star.
Okay.
There was something about him that just made me really like him, and I think it's this. I wrote down competitor. To me, when you have that competition, you have that elite competitive nature, like a Jawan Jennings, you just have a gut feeling that they can go do something. I thought he was really great, catching the ball and then the run after the catch, good hands, and he's very physical. So you're going to add that physical to
Peamer. Max Borghi is 100% a running back.
Yeah, we don't know what he's going to be, but he played running back for sure at Washington State.
It's true.
And then the problem with him was I thought his top end speed wasn't what it could be to be one of the great players in the league.
Okay.
And then I questioned his route running. To me, his route running wasn't very defined. But because I saw the other things, I felt like route running was something he could improve in the NFL, that he could get better at and potentially have elite enough traits to be a big-time receiver, for the 49ers. So he's somebody that I'm watching late in the rounds because he's sitting there as a 6th-round talent according to most mock drafts that I've seen, and I'm putting this guy up there as a 4th or 5th round pick. I think that he's just one of those guys I like in that area, but a 6th round pick is what most people have him going right now.
That's interesting. 6th round is an interesting spot for him, and I didn't think he would be there. That's a little interesting. A guy that I think is someone to keep an eye on is Justyn Ross out of Clemson. This is a guy who is kind of in the middle of the pack right now for wide receivers. This was one of the best wide receivers in all of college football as a true freshman, dealing with essentially a spinal fusion and foot fracture is what he's been dealing with the past couple of seasons. This is a guy who does possess elite speed, but he has durability concerns. With the fusion, there was concerns of whether this guy was even going to play football again. I think the Niners have moved away from drafting themselves guys with issues, but I think that his issue is severe enough that a lot of teams, even though this is a guy who possesses one of the best skill sets all around of this wide receiver core, hasn't been able to put it on display the past few years and has been hampered by injuries, that teams are going to stay away. And this is a guy you could get really late in the draft. If this guy was in the 6th, 7th round, if he fell that far because teams are so concerned with it, because he's a smooth route runner. He has the size. He tracks the ball well. He's got body control. He's got excellent release coming off the football. He has all the tools. I feel like he has top 10 tools. When I watch his film,
Woo.
I see top 10 tools.
Wow.
All across the board with Justyn Ross.
Wow.
The problem is he hasn't been durable. He hasn't been durable and available. And I think this is going to actually fall. I think a lot of places have him right now falling around that 3rd, 4th round, potentially late 4th as well. I think it could fall even further.
Yeah, I think he's gonna fall because to me, I didn't see any of the things.
You don't see any of that. Wow.
No, I have good hands and it wrote down decent routes. Decent routes. Not explosive. There's just nothing about him that is explosive. There's nothing about him that was dynamic. There was no elite traits.
Well, he has been dealing with the spinal fusion.
Well, if you're dealing with spinal fusion, you should not even be on the 49ers radar. Hello, D Ford. Let's just not go with back injuries. But no, Justyn Ross wasn't somebody that jumped off film for me. I thought there was guys, that are around him that are better options. I love 6'4", 205 pounds. I love that.
That's all nice.
But to me, it didn't seem like a guy that created separation consistently. He didn't make all the big plays. Maybe you're right. Maybe if he got healthy, he would be able to do those things. I don't see those things. And so I'm a no on Justyn Ross.
Hey, I get it, man. I get it. The last couple of years for him have not been his best. So if you're watching film the last 2 seasons on Justyn Ross,
that's what I watched.
Yeah, you're not going to see you're not going to see him at his peak and at his elite, what he was as a true freshman, and he was the first half of his sophomore campaign before the injuries settled in with the neck and the back, and before he came back with after the foot fracture.
Yeah,
he went back to back consistently. So we'll see what happens with that. I think as a late round guy, that's someone to keep an eye on. I think he's going to slide down boards. I don't think this guy's going to be in the 4th round, Ant. But hey, I think we can both agree on the next gentleman we want to talk about out of Tennessee, Velus Jones.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I love Velus Jones.
Who doesn't love Velus Jones? Cutback crew, hopefully you love Velus Jones because...
I got to find my...
Talk about a guy, Ant. Talk about a guy who has a lot of elite skill sets, comes from a school at Tennessee where if we know one thing, right, out of Tennessee wide receivers, they're going to block, Ant. They're going to block. This guy can block. This guy's patient as a runner. He's got solid vision. Special teamer immediate impact in the special teams category. Top end seed. Strong hands as well. This is a guy who plucks the ball out of the air.
Oh, yeah.
Ball is out. Doesn't feel like any ball is out of range for Velus Jones. I'm interested to see what the strengths you have are, but I'm more interested to see what you think his weaknesses are because I want to be able to compare notes and let everyone know what you like about Velus. Let everyone know what you don't like.
Oh, the things I like about Velus Jones, number one, he's 5'11", 203 pounds. So I like the size to height ratio. I think that is a stockier individual, which you can see from the picture there. He has good hands, really good after the catch, good body control, and he's a playmaker. That's the one thing I liked about him. He made things happen with the ball in his hands. I think there are a little bit of questions about his consistent route running, but that's nothing different than what we got from Deebo Samuel when he was drafted.
Correct.
About Jawan Jennings, but these guys go out there and compete every time, so I don't have a lot of negatives on him. In fact, I think that the more I watch him, the more I like Velus Jones. I wonder why he's sitting so far down in the draft.
Where are you seeing? Because I've seen as low as the 7th and as high as the late, like middle to late 5th.
Yeah, I get it. I think he's going to be a 5th to 6th round pick. I think that's how people are targeting him right now.
That's crazy.
Because they're the eliteness, right? The elite speed, the elite height. Those things aren't there. So I think he's going to have to develop. He didn't play in a great program there in Tennessee that was going to show off his skills. He had to make things happen. So I think that's where he's going to be at, but I would love him in that range. The 49ers took a flyer on him in the 5th or 6th round. If he fell to the 49ers in the 6th round, that would be by far one of my favorite picks in the draft because I think he could be dynamic and he adds so much, not just to the offense, but to the special teams as well.
Agreed with you on that, man. He does add a lot to the special teams. Velus Jones also, I think the biggest question mark I have with him is just press man coverage, getting off of it. But again, we've already talked about this. I've already mentioned this. When you're a guy who's got some speed, and he does have some speed. He does have speed, Ant. When you have that, if you can make a guy miss and you can work in that release package and be able to not let that first hand get off of you and get you off your spot in space, then you're going to make press man guys, really, really look silly. And so I don't dislike anything really about Velus Jones. I think the times I've seen this guy slip to the 7th round on mock drafts is kind of like, oh my God, wait, what? How is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, PFN has him ranked 246, which is in the middle of the 7th round, or towards the end of the 7th round.
Which doesn't make sense to me because I have about a 4th, 5th round grade on the gentleman.
Yeah, I have a 5th round grade on him. As far as I just believe that's where he's going to be. I value him a lot. So we'll see. The one, Alex, I don't know how you feel about him. Before we get into what the Cutback crew taking, being able to basically tell us whoever they want to talk about, but Bo Melton out of Rutgers.
Okay.
He's getting a lot of hype recently, especially on 49ers Twitter. A lot of people are liking Bo Melton as one of those guys that, people are equating to being like Velus Jones. To me, when I watched Bo Melton, he's 5'10", 188 pounds out of Rutgers. I thought he was a definite slot receiver and pretty much stuck there. Good hands. But I thought he played smaller even than his frame at 5'10" and 188.
He plays small. He's an awkward route runner. And sometimes awkward can be good.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching him run routes, when I'm watching him release in space, the awkwardness stands out, because he's not creating a lot of separation on said routes. Velus Jones creates separation over the middle of the field on deep balls, running after, in space on short routes. Velus Jones creates separation. David Bell is slow and creates separation. I watch Bo Melton film and don't see separation. In fact, and I had to force myself to watch Bo Melton film after seeing Twitter, get excited about Bo Melton, because the first time I tried to watch Bo Melton film, I turned it off after about a quarter and a half because I was just like, this is not happening. This doesn't feel like a 49ers pick. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. I'm not necessarily huge on this. Have you watched any of Malachi Carter out of Georgia Tech?
I don't know if I've actually seen Malachi Carter.
This is one that I've stumbled across in the past few days that I'm intrigued about because he has the size. He's got pretty good hands. He's extremely physical. The vision is absolutely, I feel, is really, really solid for a guy in his space. And I think he's got a ridiculous motor. I don't necessarily get like Deebo Samuel vibes in terms of like this guy runs through everybody and he just bowling pinning over everyone. But what I do get is Deebo's motor out of this guy. This is a guy who doesn't quit. He doesn't stop. He bounces off of guys in space. I don't hate this here. I like this later in the draft, or even potentially as an undrafted guy. But this is the big thing for him is just acceleration. Acceleration concerns. It doesn't seem like he gets up to top speed very, very quickly. And I know Georgia Tech, right? You don't see a whole lot in the passing game out of Georgia Tech, which is why guys like this tend to get slept on.
Yeah. One guy that I watched, Alex, and I don't know if you got a chance to check him out, was Josh Johnson from Tulsa.
Oh yes, good old Josh Johnson.
Yeah, I liked him. I thought one thing I wrote down was he's just a football player. Like he's going out there and he's competing, he's playing football at a high level, and then he played really big against Ohio State. So when it was time for him to play against a tough competition, he did it.
Came on.
Yeah. So he's somebody to keep an eye on to late in the draft that I thought had a lot of potential, and I think that. Right now, as far as it goes with the Cutback crew, if you guys have questions about any wide receivers that we talked about, any we didn't, go ahead and start populating the chat right now.
Or if you have a guy that you think we should have been talking about, bring it up. So P. Murr just did, and there's the first one right there. He said Jalen Tolbert from a small school.
Yeah, we did talk about Jalen Tolbert earlier. He's from South Alabama, 6'1", a little over I think almost 200 pounds. Solid player. We can go back over him real quick.
Well, look, P. Moore, the cliff notes, I guess, for Jalen Tolbert, so everyone doesn't have to sit through another Jalen Tolbert discussion or us talking about Jalen Tolbert again. The cliff notes are straight line speed is there. Run after catchability is questionable at best. He doesn't show elusiveness. He's not necessarily a playmaker with the ball in his hand.
I don't know. We disagree because I have that he's good after the catch.
I do not have he's good after the catch.
Yeah, we have a difference in opinion there.
Right,
I think he's good after the catch.
Well, we disagree. I do not think he's good after the catch.
Well, you think Justyn Ross is good too.
Well, Justyn Ross was good. I clarified. I clarified was good. Said was good and has potential. He does. He does have potential. He does. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the potential's there. You know what the top end is. The question is can he get back to it, right? Which is why he's late.
Well, a third round pick is not late.
I'm not saying third round pick.
You think it's farther than that?
I think it should be. Personally, if you're the Niners, if you're even considering this, it's 6th or 7th.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying there's teams there are places that are putting him in the third round. I don't understand that.
Well, because he's 6'4", 205 pounds.
Well, yeah, I get that, but he's coming off of 2 major injuries.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. So Jalen Tolbert, I tell you what, Ant, he is fan-freaking-tastic. Creating space off of his routes. He does do a really good job of that. And he does run a lot of middle crossers and deep stuff that makes you think that it could be a fit in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's the thing is he gets the positive yards after the catch. He's going to turn the field right away. Those are the things that I liked about him. And I mean, do I think he's going to go make 5 guys miss and score a touchdown? No. But it's the same things you liked about Jawan Jennings. He catches the ball, he gets up the field, he gets positive yards. To me, that when you don't lose momentum when you're catching the football and you're going to get upfield, that's good after the catch. So that was something I liked about him. Do I think he's going to be for the 49ers at 61? No, I wouldn't take him at 61. If he was sitting there at 93, yeah, I would potentially think about it.
Third round makes sense.
But he could be gone before 61 even. There could be a run on wide receivers. That's why I don't think there's any chance Christian Watson makes it to 61. Because I think there's going to be a run on wide receivers, and you're going to be talking about Tolbert and those guys. So I think it's just a completely different group of wide receivers that are going to be available for the 49ers.
Fair. Jay Ellie said Roberson, and I think he's talking about Jakari.
Oh, okay.
Roberson out of Wake Forest?
Yeah, I believe I actually did a breakdown of him. So let me look. All
right, he's going to pull that up, Jay Ellie. So Cutback Crew, any other receivers, any other guys
I did break down Jakari Roberson.
All right, go ahead.
6'1", 183 pounds out of Wake. I thought he was tough. Here's where I had the struggles. His speed, he lacked being able to get separation, and I didn't think he was a great route runner. So I had more negatives than positives for him, but I thought he was a tough guy that competed. But I was also concerned a little bit about being 6'1" at 183 pounds.
It's a little small.
Yeah, but
it's a small.
Yeah, so he was one of those guys I did break down, and I thought it was decent. It was
decent. Sorry, watched a lot of ACC games. No, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good players in the ACC.
I also watch a lot of ACC
What?
games.
No way. You guys both, in a shocking turn of events, you both like Florida State and watch a lot of ACC games. Mm-hmm. I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned by this.
That's why I don't like Justyn Ross. I've seen a lot of Justyn Ross.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair, right. Emezie out of NC State.
Yeah, Emezie was the one we were talking about a little bit ago. I gave him a star.
True.
I really liked him. I think he's a real competitor. Great run after the catch, good hands, and physical. My questions for him were his route running, because it's not consistent every single play, and then his top end speed. I think those were the questions.
Do you think that Emeka here could actually fall in a window for San Francisco to draft?
Yeah, I think so. He could fall in that 5th or 6th round.
Okay.
There's potential there. I mean, in fact, let's just look at what PFN has for him.
What's the number on him?
Let me see. 220. So that's the 49ers literally have picked 220 and 221.
There you go.
The comp picks of the 6th round. So that is a 6th round pick potentially.
In the 6th, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense there. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of positive things with Emezie. It's crazy because I haven't, and when I've been doing a lot of my mock drafts, I haven't seen him on the board available with the Niners picks. So it's one of those things where, for me, I'm sitting there going, I like what I see out of Mr. Okafor there at NC State, but it's going to be available. It's like I just don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know what other teams are looking at and valuing as well when they're looking at this draft class and the possibilities and the potential here. And they may be sitting here looking at these guys and being like, hey, you know what? We're going to go up here. We feel wide receivers where the best available player is right now at this moment in time, and we're going to take a run and make a run. I think you're going to have that potentially early in this draft, and it could happen in the middle rounds as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great players, and there was a lot of guys that I broke down, that are, I don't know, did you break down Trey Turner from Virginia Tech?
I did, Ant. I'm actually trying to get around to it there now. Here it is.
Yeah, Trey Turner, 6'1", 179 pounds out of Virginia Tech. I thought he had good vision. He locates the ball, and he's a power slot guy. To me, that's what he was. Once again, speed and routes seem to be the concern for him, and that's one of the reasons he's going to drop on the board compared to a lot of the other guys. But he was somebody that I thought was a good late round pick, but I wouldn't go very high with him at all.
No, I wouldn't go high with him either. I think Virginia Tech did a very good job of putting him in situations, especially when he's in the slot, and getting him open. There's a lot of times on film where he's wide open, and that's a good thing. If a guy's able to get wide open when he's in the right scheme, and that means in the right scheme, this guy is a guy you can utilize in a variety of different ways to throw defenses off and get him the ball in space, but not a playmaking option, not a big playmaking threat in terms of being able to do stuff with the football. The top end speed isn't necessarily there.
Right.
But no, he does make sense. I don't know. I don't know if the Niners are going to fall in love with a guy like that.
And he's predicted to go undrafted.
He is predicted to go undrafted, but he's not a bad player by any means. I see here, always believe in yourself. John Metchie, receiver from Alabama, great route runner, had 97 catches on the season. Both Ant and I, one of our favorite wide receivers in this draft.
Yeah, no, I love John Metchie. Good route runner, great route runner. Can win one-on-one, great after the catch. does a crane kick TD celebration, which that's one thing that
Ant needs that in his life.
And then doesn't lose speed when catching the football. So yeah, John Metchie, 6 foot, 195 pounds, was definitely one of my favorite players to watch on film. In fact, I've watched a lot more film of him because I think he really does fit what the 49ers would like to do. I think he would have been even more obvious if Ray McCloud wouldn't have been signed. But I think he's so much different from some of the other guys that you could actually add him in there and he could still operate even with Ray McCloud on the team. I think they do different things.
Possibly there. P. Murr said Slade Bolden late. I don't think the Niners are going after a Slade Bolden. It's just not happening. That feels more like a Bill Belichick type pick than a San Francisco pick. In a shocking development, I don't think the Niners are going to be targeting too many smaller slot receivers. I just don't think they're going to do it.
No, I mean, part of the reason that, Slade Bolden is not even going to get drafted, by the way.
No, he's probably going to be an undrafted
He's going to be an undrafted free agent. So that's that. I think when we were talking about slot receivers, there are guys, but they have to have that super quick, everything. And that's why I think they're even trending away from a Calvin Austin, from a Skyy Moore, from some of these guys. I think it's just there's other guys that are bigger that they're going to be going after because they already have a Ray McCloud now. They don't need to add one of those players in the draft. So I think it's kind of what the 49ers are going after changes definitely.
You're not wrong there. Jalen Naylor from Michigan State, late rounders is Jay Ellie.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of Naylor. Not bad. Late rounder. This is one of those things where you're talking 7th round pick. So if you're waiting for maybe one of those compensatory picks, 220, 221, potentially 262, Mr. Irrelevant if he's still there. But nothing to me that was screaming, high traits. I thought there was other guys ahead of him that were definitely more impactful, and even guys around the same, like we talked about Velus Jones, I thought was a more dynamic player. So he wouldn't be one of the guys I would go with, but I see some of the allure of him.
Yeah, I see some of the allure indeed. I definitely see that there. I'm going to be there. I think there's definitely, you and I are not going to be going into gems, guys that are potentially, 7th undrafted guys very much here in this cycle, and we're going to be saving a lot of those for special episodes. So if you guys are sitting there going, well, how come you guys haven't talked about 7th round guys, undrafted guys? Well, it's because we got gem episodes coming down the road in which we're going to talk about guys who the Niners could target late or bring in as undrafted free agents, especially and if they decide not to go wide receiver at all in the draft, which with some of the names that are on the board with the guys like Christian Watson, David Bell, Mr. Tolbert, Alec Pierce, Khalil Shakir, John Metchie, Danny Gray, Kyle Phillips, Reggie Roberson, Jahan Dotson, Velus Jones, those types of names that are out there for the San Francisco 49ers, it's really hard to believe that they're not going to go after one of them.
Well, right now, they have to fill out the roster anyways.
True.
Right now, Jawan Jennings isn't even under contract, so they're going to have wide receiver, a hole to fill as of right now, unless they're able to bring in some low budget guys. But right now, as it's constituted, you have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and you have Ray McCloud because Jawan Jennings isn't under contract yet. At some point, this is going to happen. He's going to get done. Exclusive rights guy, but that hasn't come through yet. When that does, then you're going to have those 4 guys. The 49ers like to keep 5, potentially 6 guys, depending on what they're using their guys for special teams or whatever. So I think they're going to add a few more guys to this roster, and potentially right now, if they don't add anyone else in free agency, 2 more guys in the draft. And if you can get an impact guy early, especially like a Watson, a Metchie, somebody that can definitely be an explosive type player, you want to do that. Put explosive players around Trey Lance. You can create, and then potentially get another guy late in the draft that could potentially do something else. Somebody like Danny Gray, somebody like Reggie Roberson, or potentially somebody like Tyquan Thornton that can stretch the field if you do miss out on Watson. I think those are potential guys you're looking for because right now it's all about getting elite caliber players or guys with elite traits around Trey Lance and be able to use that big arm that he's got.
Yeah, you kind of want to use the big arm, man. And luckily for the San Francisco 49ers in this draft, there are some guys with some speed who can take the top off the defense and help you add that little bit of extra pizzazz and, I guess, explosivity into the offense. The home run play with the ball, not home run play with the ball, Ant, or chunk play with the football on a screen or a middle crosser, but literally throwing the ball down the field and eating up a huge chunk of yardage.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask the Cutback crew a very, very tough question. At 61, would you take Christian Watson or would you go John Metchie?
Okay, I'm going to put it in a poll, too.
I want to know if people want to go Watson. I want to see, because right now, Christian Watson's been completely polarizing. I wonder how many people believe it's Watson over Metchie.
That is very interesting, my guy. Ant, that's very interesting. Let's let the Cutback crew vote on that and see what happens there. I did see Baymax said he'd eat dog meat to get a Super Bowl, which little much there, but I understand the desperation. 49ers fans really want that 6th Super Bowl championship, Ant, and there are people that may do something like that, Baymax. I'm very interested to see what we have here, and votes are already piling in. We already got 3 of them, Ant, and Christian Watson currently leads the way on this and is pulling away a little bit, but it's still early. Cutback crew, 48 of you in here watching right now. Make sure you vote.
I kind of think the way that the 49ers Twitter's been operating, the way the 49ers have been linked to Christian Watson, I think he's going to fly up the boards. I ask you because I'm going to ask you now, what would you rather have, Watson at 61 or Metchie at 93? Here's the fact. If you can get one of those big-time edge rushers at 61. So a big-time edge rusher at 61, with Metchie, or would you rather have Christian Watson at 61 and one of those edge rushers that's left at 93?
Edge rusher at 61. John Metchie at 93.
Yeah.
All day, I don't even hesitate.
Yeah.
I don't even hesitate. I don't even think twice about it.
Do you think any of those edge rushers are going to be left now?
I don't know. I don't believe so, but God, I want one. And just one of them fall there, please. One guy get close. Because if we're getting to, Ant, I believe this. I really do think this 100%. If the Niners are getting close to pick like 58 and there's 2 names left, they're going to try and move up and get one of them at 60.
You think so?
I think so. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have to give up the compensatory pick maybe to move up to get it. Oh, it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. 61 is a kind of a strange place to have your first pick. All right, you're used to having your second round pick be somewhere, in the middle of it if you don't have a first round pick. So that's going to be one of those things. I'm curious who's going to be available, because I think normally if you were sitting in the middle of the second round, you'd feel confident you were going to get a pretty good edge rusher.
Typically, I
just think there's going to be such a run on them. And then your decisions start to change. Do you go for one of the secondary edge rushers, or do you go with one of the secondary wide receivers, or do you just flip and go to a different position? Maybe one of the corners.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly there, Ant. Baymax said, I choose Metchie because it's against the rules for us 49ers fans to get what we want.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Bomber's screaming. He's shouting edge rusher, Ant. He's shouting it for the world to hear. He wants everyone to know. Edge rusher at 61. Then 93 with John Metchie. And actually, the poll's a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. It's sitting at 64% currently for Christian Watson, 36%. Now, granted, there's only 11 votes and there's 46 of you. Come on now, Cutback crew. Hit the vote right now. Pull up the live chat. The poll will pop itself up. You can select one of your options. And let's hear from you on this. And Cutback crew, too. Any other questions that you have, now is the time to get them out. I will, before we get to any more questions, and before we move on from anything else, did you happen to catch at any of what Jed York said today to reporters about the situation going on with San Francisco? And did that make you feel one way or the other about the 49ers in the current offseason mode that we're in?
I thought it was, number one, it was a clear sign that he is fully backing John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and the decisions that are being made. The fact that he used the term overvaluing the one position, and it's going to be quarterback. I thought that was interesting, the way that he said that. Because I think they are putting together a nice unified front in the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo, could be on this roster. And I think they have to give that appearance if they want to trade him, because if not, then you lose trade value. You say at some point you're going to cut him, why would somebody trade for him, right?
Nobody.
So you have to make it appear that is the case. But did you hear what Kyle Shanahan was having to say as well? Kyle Shanahan talking about, Trey Lance is going to, of course, we all know, run OTAs. He's going to, be doing mini camp and all that. But he basically did allude to the fact that 49ers were close to trading Jimmy Garoppolo before the surgery happened. So he changed the tune a little bit from what John Lynch had said the day before. I thought those things were interesting. So they did plan on having Jimmy Garoppolo off the books and being able to use that money however they see fit, whether that's just Debo and Nick Bosa. But it's real clear right now that Trey Lance is going to be in every position to start. In fact, he said, right, last year, Trey Lance wasn't ready. This year, he believes Trey Lance will be ready to compete for the starting quarterback job.
Correct. I thought those comments were the most telling. I think those comments are, everyone who is losing their minds last year about, how is Trey not ready? I've even seen a couple of other content creators and for the 49ers coming out and saying that Trey had a better training camp last year than Jimmy Garoppolo, which is just baffling to me because it's just in no world did that happen. I think, though, everything is lining up for Trey to be the guy. Everything is lining up for that to be the case. Jimmy not being available early, Trey outworking and going to be continually developing, his ceiling being where it is, the growth we've already seen from him. All the stars are aligning for a Trey Lance takeover in 2022. And if you're the 49ers, it feels like, and it seems like, they're just sitting here going, we're going to value our quarterback position because it's a position of strength. It's not a position of weakness. And if we don't have to move off of it, and no one's going to give us what we need to move off of it, then we're not going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think they're looking at it. There's a value right now still with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're going to play this thing out. And there's still the potential, right, that somebody's going to lose a quarterback. Or like Kyle Shanahan said, there's some teams out there with no quarterbacks. And we have 3 that we feel good about. I
feel good about 2.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, though, that's his statement. We feel good about 3 quarterbacks, and there's teams out there with none. He's sending a shot at somebody like, hey, you need to come get one of our guys. Like, what are you doing? So I think that, this thing's going to play out over the next several months, maybe even on draft day, because Kyle said they were looking to get multiple picks for Jimmy Garoppolo. But until then, I think this is just going to be just to stay the course, see what happens. But I'm excited to see what happens with the draft, what happens with OTAs and minicamps, with Trey leading the huddle and taking over as the leader of the football team. It's
going to be interesting, and it's going to be, we need that money to sign Debo and Bosa. No reason to keep paying Jimmy any more money.
Yeah, and one thing I thought was interesting that has been going on, and they still would have had about $28 million of cap space right now. Yes, that money could be used in a big way to be able to help your football team. So yes, being able to sign Bosa and Debo Samuel, or potentially bring in other free agents, yeah, that's something that they would like to do with that money. But right now, it's not worth it to just cut Jimmy Garoppolo and cut bait and get nothing back, is what they're saying. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I'm saying that's exactly how the team is feeling.
That's
right
what
now,
the team's doing,
and that's what they're saying. So they're going to wait until Jimmy Garoppolo either, number one, has a trade value to where they can trade him and get something back, or where they can cut him without losing the extra $8 million. So I think right now, releasing him is actually on the back burner, and trade is still more at the forefront. And I believe him actually being on this roster is a possibility now, and I didn't think that was a possibility after we ended the season.
Very true, Ant. Very true indeed. We're going to see only insiders to listen to about the Niners are Schefter, Glazer, and Albert Breer, says Brad Jones. Look, guys, there's a lot of good people putting good quality content out there for the San Francisco 49ers, this channel being one of them. And we're now starting to get into draft content, which means more positions, more teams, more players, and more things for the San Francisco 49ers to be doing. And so we're going to be going through all of this. I thought this video was about potential Ward at 61, said John Nevis. John, this is about the wide receiver prospects the Niners could target in the NFL draft.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about. It's about potential wide receivers the Niners could target throughout the draft. And we went through a variety of different players. And,
handful of different guys.
Yeah, and it was exciting. And I really enjoyed going through this receiver group. I don't think this receiver group is as good as one that came out a couple years ago that featured Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Chase Claypool, and that great group. But I think this is a really good one. And I think the 49ers have options not only in the second round, but all the way until, the 6th round of guys that could come in and compete and make the roster. I think when you get into the 7th round or beyond, or even some of the 6th round players, they wouldn't be good enough to make this roster. So I don't think they'll go that route.
No, I don't think they're going to as well. But look, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Niners do. We've gone through now a handful of wide receivers. So there's a handful of names. And if you watch this live, great. And if you're watching it back on the replay, and you don't want to sit through every little bit of details, we will be going through and putting nice little timestamps for each individual player. So you don't have to worry about that. You can just click the timestamp, listen to what you want to listen to about the guy, and then move on to the next one if you'd like to as well. So if you watch this live, great, wonderful. It was wonderful conversing with the Cutback crew a little bit and getting some of the names that you guys are interested in. And if you didn't hear some names that you want to be discussed and talked about here on the channel, then leave them in the comments section right now. Comment away. Let us know who those guys are. And who knows, Ant and I will start going through some more film. We'll take a look at some guys. And if someone stands out, and who knows, maybe they find themselves into a gem episode, Only way for you to have us talk about those guys that we didn't talk about is to comment away and make sure you're subscribed if you have not already. Hit that notification bell as well. That way you don't miss any of the live streams that we're going to be having, because they're going to be coming in daily now. And we're going to be going live to talk about everything San Francisco 49ers, any breaking news, and now all draft, baby.
Yeah, we're getting into the draft. And we have some people that are throwing in some questions. And Rini says, is it possible that the 49ers verbally agreed to sign a free agent and told them to wait until they trade or cut Jimmy Garoppolo later on? I mean, they could have had some of these conversations about freeing up money, but I don't think you're going to reach a verbal agreement like that, because that usually becomes facts that you're going to actually do it. And I don't think these players would be willing to take a verbal agreement and not go out there and sign a deal on the dotted line and make sure you get your money, because there's no guarantees, right, that the 49ers do move Jimmy Garoppolo and then give you that. So I think in theory, I bet they had conversations with a lot of free agents that, hey, if we can free up some cap space, we'd love to have you. Or if your number would come down a little bit, we could free up the cap space. But right now, nobody's been willing to move on that. And some of the big free agents have kind of said they're not going to take lower money. That's Tyrann Mathieu, Julio Jones, and Stephon Gilmore. So we'll see what happens there.
We are going to see what happens there. But Renee, it is possible that the Niners have verbally agreed. The problem with doing that with a verbal agreement is said player can renege on said verbal agreement if someone else offers them the same or something a little bit better. So you're playing with fire there when you do that. JLA covered a huge amount of wide receiver options for the Niners. We did. We tried to anyway. We tried to go through a big list.
Yeah.
And newsflash, it's gonna be all the positions.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all the positions.
We're gonna talk about all of them.
And Tyler Ledbetter says Velus Jones ran at 4.3 140, and he did reverse plays, wide receiver screens, returns kicks. He does a lot of different things. And
yeah, we like him
for a lot of mock drafts, and he's going late, which means definitely a potential options for the Niners, because as you and I both know, and as the Cutback crew and the faithful know, the Niners are really good at drafting guys late, and they've hit on a couple of late round wide receivers. So they definitely may be looking at some late round options this year.
Yeah, I would think so. And they're going to have a lot of guys that are going to be interested in, and there's a lot of potential for the 49ers in the wide receiver room. In particular, there's other positions as well that I'm sure we're going to get into, where there's guys that are going to be in that 4th, 5th, and 6th round where the 49ers have hit consistently that could contribute to the football team, not just this year, but in the future. I think that Velus Jones is one of those guys, and I really like him. So, yeah, that makes sense. I think that his numbers are impressive, but the film is impressive, and I think that's the main thing.
The film speaks for itself, and that is for sure. Look, I'm very excited about everything we still got coming up on this channel, all the additional content that's going to be coming your way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You've liked the video as well. Share it with the rest of the faithful. Cutback crew, if there's no other questions, I think we'll wrap this thing up for the night. Good old Tommy, man.
Yeah, I was enjoying Tommy's "Coming to America" quote.
Good old Tommy Huxley. Sending us off the way we need. And Baymac, for one more, and we need an O-line. Don't worry, my guy. We got an O-line episode coming down the road here for you. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll catch you all tomorrow for more draft news and any breaking news that may happen for the San Francisco 49ers. And just like Gary said, on the quest for 3K, hit that subscribe button. Join today. And Ant, it's about that time.
Yeah, let's chalk another one up.
Catch y'all later, TCC. Make sure you do some homework. Watch these guys. Watch the film.